guys. So we want to go ahead and get started. I know this is the precious time of the evening, 7 o'clock. So first off, welcome to our I Didn't Pass, Now What event. So yeah, we know, right, that this session, everybody in here is because either they took the most recent exam or one of the previous ones, and we're not successful. And, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about, what am I going to start off this message with to everybody on this call? And to be honest, I was really torn between two messages. So I decided to go ahead and do both. All right. And so the first message is, I empathize with you guys and I get it. It freaking sucks. Everybody who has gone through this has gone through 3 years of law school, taken this exam, and everybody wanted to pass. Everybody wanted to celebrate, right? Everybody wanted to show off to their family and their friends, show to their employer that, hey, I'm ready to put this journey behind me. Let's celebrate, etc. And we didn't get that this go round. And so for that, again, I feel for you. It's always bittersweet on results day for us at the Legally Fit team, because you have so many people that you're celebrating with because they passed, but then our hearts go out to all of those that we know put in the work and didn't get there. And so it's going to be a lot about what we talk about today, is that we have to feel these emotions. We have to process these things so they don't hold us back going into the next go round, which leads me into my second message, right? For all those that know me and know Legally Fit, you guys know that we're here all about the positivity and the uplifting of students to have the confidence that we can do this. And it's like, hey, it's okay, right? The reality is so many students don't pass this thing on the first go round. And this last test that you guys took, right? Again, whether that was this past July or one before, that was then your learning lesson to set you up for success moving forward. And so maybe on the last go round, you had life circumstances that were thrown at you and became distractions, right? Maybe you were in a program that wasn't a great fit for you, and you have to figure out, maybe I need a different environment, different study buddy, right? Those types of things. Maybe you did everything you can and you just kind of fell victim to the arbitrary nature of this exam, which we can all agree that it is. So whatever the reason was, it's time to learn from what happened in the past and improve and become better, the best versions of ourselves, or the best version of students that we can be. And as the Legally Fit students know, we want to be so good at this exam that we're not even putting ourselves in the category of a reread, not to fall to the nature of this arbitrary test. And we want to make sure we do our benchmarks, right? We do our practice. We do our multiple choice questions. A lot of us weren't able to hit all of our benchmarks the last time. We want to make sure we're doing all the practice we're supposed to do so we can be successful. So we have a great event planned for you guys. I actually brought 3 guest speakers that I'll be bringing into the session periodically, and they're going to share their stories with you guys and how they became successful to ultimately pass the California bar exam. So I'm super excited to share them with you. And then, of course, we're going to talk a little bit about what Legally Fit has in store for the February exam and how we can all help you guys become successful and be a part of your journey. So with no further ado, I will go ahead and jump into our presentation, where we'll walk through some things. I'll break at different points for questions, and we'll go from there. All right, so let me go ahead and share screen. Charles, give me a thumbs up. Can you see that? All good? All right. Oh, that is the wrong one. That is the flyer. Let me do that one more time. Okay. All right. So here we go. So there are 3 steps now to becoming Esquire. Step number 1 is pick yourself up. Step number 2 is come up with an attack plan. Step number 3 is execute and pass the exam. All right. So step number 1 is where we're at. So let's go ahead and get straight into it. Right. We should all know who that is. Lorraine, can you tell me who that is right there on the floor?
Yeah. Muhammad Ali. I was going to say Cassius Clay.
Cassius Clay. Look,
his mama call him Clay. I would call him Clay.
So, this is a great imagery just to remind ourselves that we all get knocked down, right? Even the greats. And so first step is, right, get off the mat and pick ourselves up. All right. And so here are the next steps. You guys found out your results on Thursday. Again, they weren't the results that we wanted. So hopefully you've already started this process over the weekend of processing those results. All right. That leads us to Tuesday. We changed the event to Tuesday. That I didn't pass. Now what? We're here. And now I want to give yourself about another week, right? This next week, focus, guys, on processing your emotions, reconnecting with why you decided to go down this path, why you want to be a lawyer. And then you're going to come up with your attack plan, which again, we're going to help a little bit with now. But the very first thing I need you guys focusing on is processing all those emotions. We're going to have a guest speaker again talk here in a quick sec about that. I might add on a little bit at the end, but I can't stress the importance of doing just that. And then after that, you see, you're going to go ahead and jump into bar prep, and then you're going to pass the exam because we're all going to pass this thing. All right. So next, own your story. All right. Now, this one goes out to, right, every single person in here, whether it's your second time taking it, third time, fourth time, is that you have to own your story. And so much of what plays to our psyche behind this is the shot to our ego. I'm smart, I'm accomplished, right? And all of these different things that we start to chip at when we don't pass this test. And so it's not to take away from your greatness and your potential of being a lawyer, right? So here I have not passing does not equal never passing. Don't forget that most people take the bar exam more than once. Own your story and know that it'll feature a person that displayed perseverance and determination to accomplish that goal. All right. And so you see some obviously some recognizable characters here and on our screen. These are all people who did not pass the bar exam on their first attempt. All right. So again, fill in that, own that story and let it be a part of your, the second half of that is your success story and how you overcame this crazy challenge. This is another one, right? Enter the next round with confidence. All right, you see there up those steps, which you've already stepped up is knowledge, clarity, and skills. Knowledge, you've gone in and you've learned the law, right? Maybe some subjects better than others, right? But you have things that you're taking with you. Clarity, you know what the exam is like. You know what to expect. All that newness is out of the door. And now you can go in knowing what you need to do based off of what you've seen. And then again, skills based off of you going through a prep program already, you have skills built up that you get to now add on. So I like to give this message because a lot of times a repeat taker will think, oh man, I got to start all over from the beginning. And that's simply not the case. All right. So it's important to remember you do have skills, you do have knowledge of the law, and now we just need to build upon that. Okay. So you're not starting over from scratch. All right. And so from there, let me go ahead and stop sharing. And I'm going to introduce our first guest speaker today. So this guy is an awesome dude, and he is a former Legally Fit student. He's going to come and talk to you guys about his story and his challenges of going through it for a second time and what he had to do to get over that hump. I'm going to let him do his intro and his story and give his message. So with no further ado, Jordan, are you there? Let's see, got any technical difficulties? Let me see if he's in here. Uh-oh. Oh, he just texted me. Let me send him this one more time and see if he comes in. All right, he's in. I think somebody's in the waiting room. Let's see if that's him. Jordan, you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, there he is. All right, so I just did a quick little brief intro, and basically what I told them you were going to share with them, man, is just your story as a repeat taker, and just what that journey was mentally, getting back up into the ring and knocking it out, and what your message is. So quick little background on your story. What's your message for him, man?
Okay. All right. Cool. Wait, you want me to get a background on my journey really quick, or did you do
Yeah,
that
just
already?
like, your
Okay.
story with the bar exam and like what your story is. Yeah.
Okay.
And how it
Cool.
relates to that.
Hey everybody. I hope everybody's doing well. Okay. So just really quick, my backstory. I took the bar exam July, 2021, and I was like, okay, cool. I did it. This and that. Cool. Fine. Perfect. I started feeling really good about it. Then I got a notice October 23rd, 2021. They're like, basically like, hey, we're investigating you. You got your Apple Watch on. I'm like, okay, this is hella discouraging. Then they didn't tell me until an hour before results that I basically got disqualified. Very heartbreaking, heart-wrenching. Yeah, it was super messed up. Basically, here's the message I want to share, man. Your biggest obstacle going into this next bar exam in February, if you plan on taking it in February or even in July, if you're going to wait a year, your biggest obstacle is not even an exam at this point. It's your mental. Okay. I think the biggest reason why people are not passing this February exam, even July, but primarily February because it's coming right up, is because they just can't get over the fact that they failed the last bar exam. Listen, I'm here to tell you this. Listen. First off, as we know, this exam is not here. The exam is going to make you feel like you're not competent. It's going to make you feel like you're not going to be a good lawyer and all these things of that sort. I'm here to tell you that's bullshit. Okay. I'm a repeat taker and I'm running circles around people who pass on the first time. Running circles. Like I know what I'm doing. And that it just reassures me like that test doesn't mean shit. Okay. That's number one. Number two is this. You have to get over the fact that you failed it. It's done. There's nothing you can do about that. And I'm not telling you shouldn't feel how you feel, because you definitely should, but you have to let it go as quickly as you can. Feel how you feel, cry, yell, scream, do whatever you have to do to get over it. But you have to let it go at least before you start studying. Okay. If not, maybe the first week of studying, you gotta let it go. Because if you don't, that's going to eat you up inside and you're not going to be able to retain information again and study over. Okay. This exam, you're going to pass it. You're going to pass it, okay? You took it the first time. You know what to expect. This shit is not going to defeat you, okay? Number 3, don't quit. Do not think about quitting. You cannot. We didn't spend all this fucking money for law school. We got all this damn debt. You gonna quit? Absolutely not. I'm not going to allow that to happen. Neither is DeAndre. Neither should you. Do not quit. You not passing the bar exam on the first try doesn't mean you're a failure. It's nothing but a dream deferred, okay? Your dream of being a lawyer is just deferred for another 6 months. That's it. Because you're going to pass it this next time. It's just deferred, okay? In the meantime, you cry, you get it out, do what you have to do, go party, do what you got to do. Then when it's time to study again, you lock in, okay? Just remember, keep telling yourself, I'm competent. I got this. I'm going to do better. I'm going to pass this time. You have to keep telling yourself that every single day. I know exactly what it's like. It's kind of like you're mourning the death of your dreams. Like that's literally how it feels. It's tough and it eats you up inside. And the bar exam is half mental. It's literally half mental. While you take it, even if you fail it, you think, oh my God, I'm worthless. Oh my God, all my friends passed. I didn't pass. Oh my God, I'm a failure. Get all that out. Because that's not what it means. And no one's really thinking about that except for you. That's one thing I had to learn. I was telling myself that. No one else is telling me that, okay? You guys got it. You guys are going to do great, okay? Breathe, cry, get it out. And I want you guys to lock in, okay? All right?
There it is,
All
man.
right, good.
Appreciate you coming in, Jordan, and sharing that message.
Of course.
And yeah, Jordan was, like I said, he was an all-star during the first time, and he had that, unfortunate news. And I saw firsthand him going through that battle. And that's why I thought he would be a great person to come share that message. And Jordan's not the only one. I've seen so many students go through that struggle. And so again, just to echo some of those thoughts, we go through a range. Some of you guys are feeling just fine, right? Some of you guys are very, process things quickly and you're ready to go. And I think that's amazing. If you're in that situation, don't feel the need to feel emotions you don't have. But for the ones that feel angry, right? Angry at the exam, angry at people, etc., Again, you just don't want to hold on to that. You want to be as fresh and ready to go as possible once you're starting in December, so it's not eating at you. Because what we see is while you're in the middle of property, your mind still might be running of like, why didn't I pass this test? Like, why am I here again? And you just want to ask all those questions and answer it and deal with all of that in this phase, as opposed to while you're in the middle of studying again. All right. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump back into the presentation. And so after you pick yourself up, all right, so we're moving past that chapter. Muhammad Ali is off the ground. He's back up on his feet and he's throwing blows again. And that's going to be all of you guys. Okay. So here are some things that I wanted to touch on that you guys are all considering. All right. So first off, same company versus new company. Here's a list of some pros and cons as you're figuring out what your attack plan will be. So some pros of same company is you're familiar with the materials and the approach. Another plus can be if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Right. So if it's already working for you, you feel like you just need to do more, then stick with your same company. However, if it is broke, then fix it. Right. And that's only a question that you can answer based off of the company that you chose last time and how good of a fit it was for you. All right. Next is new company. The benefits of a new company sometimes are you have improved materials and approach, depending on where you started. It's a fresh program for a fresh start, right? So there's always, that can be a plus, and that it feels like you're doing something a little bit different here, and that can be an advantage. But then, right, picking the right company and kind of entering that whole new world of where should I go? What should I do? That can be pretty taxing and overwhelming in and of itself. All right, so those are some things to consider. And then next is company versus private tutor, right? So as repeat takers, you guys are definitely in this boat where you may not have to do a program and you may not have to do a private tutor, but you could do both, neither one, etc. So for a company, typically the pros are you get full coverage, it's more affordable, and you get more materials. But some of the cons of traditional companies are cookie cutter program, no guidance, no human interaction, no personalized attention. And as repeat takers, that's a lot of what you guys want, is some personalized attention and an ability to tailor the program to now your identified needs. All right. And then on the private tutor, obviously it's the opposite of that. You have all the personal attention, but then sometimes private tutors don't have all the materials you may need. But again, you may have materials already from your previous program that you were able to keep. Quick little highlight, we'll talk more about Legally Fit later on. Legally Fit does aim to be a hybrid approach where we combine the best of both worlds. So we have the full materials that you get from a big box company. And at the same time, we have the personal nature to give you that touch of private coaching with office hours, essay grading, right? And some various things. But again, we'll talk about Legally Fit later. Right now, I just want to talk about you guys and your options. So that takes us to the repeat taker recommendations. So I broke this and I made this chart based off of how many points you fell off of the previous exam. So let's kind of walk through this together. If you were 25 points or less, right? In my opinion, that means you were pretty much right there based off of the arbitrary nature of how this test is graded. You could have easily passed this exam had you had a couple of people grade those essays differently. Well, a bar prep program, as you see, in my opinion, is always recommended, and not because I run a bar prep program, but just because I'm of the mindset that I want to make sure everybody passed this test, and it's, in my opinion, best to be guided. Now, for some of us, as you see here, self-study is an option, but at the very least, I always think a bar prep that has a schedule, materials, guidance, etc., is going to be the way to go. Well, on the private coaching side, that's something that you can consider adding on. And if you're 25 points or less, it's definitely not needed, which is why I put why not. And so maybe 1 to 3 sessions throughout your bar prep can be something that's beneficial. Maybe a session in the beginning of your bar prep journey, so you can get some assistance in figuring out, okay, where do I need to focus my attention? And what are some of the tools that I can use throughout bar prep to improve on these things? And then maybe a session towards the end of bar prep of like, here's where I'm at right now. What are some of the things that I need to do in this last stretch? So again, you can use those sparingly, but it's kind of like, I would think of it as a personal trainer for somebody who knows how to work out. You know, maybe you want somebody to just kind of like meet with you once in the beginning to see what's proper form and what are the exercises I should be doing. And then like, all right, I can take it from there on my own. So that's the idea if you were 25 points or less. If you were within 26 to 90 points, so this is more of like, okay, we have some issues that we do want to address and figure out where our areas of improvement are. So again, a bar prep program is definitely recommended. I don't think you should self-study in that situation. The only time I think a student should self-study if they were that far off is if they perform that poorly because of clear outside factors, right? Like you had crazy life experiences that happened. You had just something that really threw you off outside of you studying every day and doing your work. So self-study, I don't think is an option there. And then it is recommended if you're in that range that you consider private coaching, because again, that way you can get into the nuance of what your needs are and what your attack plan should be. And then lastly, 91 points or more. So if you're in this area, one, I want to say like, and be real with you that there are then, right, there's an identified misunderstanding with either the law and or the skills. And so you have to get into that, roll up your sleeves and figure out where am I going wrong? Okay. And so for many of our students there, private coaching is strongly recommended. And then we do twice a week is our recommendation. And again, you could do private coaching with Legally Fit. There's private coaches all over the internet. You can find what works best with you. But again, just getting that personalized approach is typically good for those students. And we've seen people increase their scores by over 100 points to go on and pass. So I don't want anybody to be discouraged if they're in that category. It's definitely possible, but you got to get to the root of those problems. All right, so I'm going to also now stop sharing screen again here for a brief second. And I wanted to chat with you guys. I've had a lot of conversations since Thursday with a lot of people who are considering taking the next test. And I wanted to kind of summarize a lot of the, I thought, most valuable tips that I was giving. And the first one is, I got a lot of questions on self-studying, right? So to revisit that, I only think it's an option for students if they were within 25 points of passing. If you're going to self-study, you have to make sure you are very disciplined and self-motivated. All right. So a lot of us know that we need something and somebody pushing us and keeping us accountable. So make sure you're being honest with yourself if a self-study approach is going to keep you on track. And then if you are going to do it, make sure you have a clear schedule, reliable materials, and a plan for keeping yourself accountable. All right. So you have to stay very organized since you're going to be guiding yourself. And then lastly is avoid the materials buffet. All right. So out of curiosity, that's like a term of art. Lorraine, what do you think I mean by the materials buffet?
Like all of the bar prep materials out there, like don't start saying, maybe if I try this and this and this, just don't overwhelm yourself with that.
Exactly. Because, right, I'm sure you guys have talked to somebody who's passed, and it's like, hey, I did this. I did critical class flashcards. I did these cheat sheets from here. I did this. I did that. And it's like, look, it's not so much about finding that like super magic, outline or magic piece of material and trying to bring that all together. And a lot of times it overwhelms us, right? So find, right, systems that are typically paired together or programs, again, that work really well for you, and try to stick to something that's in the same world so you're not just kind of all over the place. So before I move on from that, do I have any specific questions on self-studying? Anybody that's been considering it and has any questions that hasn't been addressed about it? All right, so let's go ahead and get to early start tips. All right, so a lot of people have also said, look, D, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to get back into the ring already, and I'm ready to get started. So here are my top 5 tips, and I definitely suggest you guys write these down if you have any pen and paper on what I think you should focus on in your early start. So number 1 is identify your weaknesses. All right, both with the law and or your skills. When it comes to the skills, right, that's essay writing, that's MBE, that's the PT, and the law, right, it's what subjects do you struggle with, and kind of rank all of them. Take all the subjects and rank them in order of like, here's the top of my list of what I'm most uncomfortable with, all the way to what you are the most comfortable with. After you identify your weaknesses, again, very important, then in this early start, use this time to hyper focus and hone in on your weaknesses. Now, this is where you can either use your materials from your previous program, Or if you're signing up for a program, a lot of times you may be able to get the materials early. So feel free to do that. So whatever you're using as your bank, go ahead and start using those things to work on those weaknesses. Now, 3, what if I don't have any big weaknesses, right? Again, what if you were in that 25-point range? Or what if it was just like all kind of even kill? Well, my suggestion there, if you don't have any strong identified weaknesses, is just go ahead and get an early start into bar prep. So figure out what type of schedule you're going to be having. And why don't you go ahead and get started early, because we know December is always a pretty crazy time to be studying for the bar, because you have Christmas, you have Hanukkah, right? You have all the holidays, you have New Year's. So it's good to use that time just to get an early start so it doesn't feel so stressful during that time frame. Number 4, and we've already said it, use this early start to still focus on getting your mind right. Like working on your mental during this phase is almost as important as studying contracts or property. So again, that you're mentally ready to take this. The bar is half mental. We've all heard it. And it's a serious thing that if we keep putting in the daily work, then it's accomplishable. All right. And then the last tip is start to gradually increase your daily study time. Right? Start to gradually increase your daily study time. Charles, how many hours, on a good day were you putting in consecutively to study during bar prep?
With work, 4.5 to 5. Without, on the weekends, I was doing 7 to 8.
All right. So it could range anywhere when somebody's working from 4 to 5 to the weekend to sometimes a full time is anywhere to 10 to 12 hours. And so you guys all know what those long days look like. And I'm sure none of us were really studying the law while we were waiting for results. So just give yourself some grace and getting back into that groove. So that way it doesn't hit you very hard come December and you're like, man, here we are again. So start to get in those 3-hour spurts of working and studying on the material, right? Take a break, do another 3-hour spurt. So again, it's all gradual and seamless. All right, so those are my early start tips. Okay, so any questions about early start, where to begin or anything like that we can address before I move on to my next discussion? And feel free to, raise your hand and there we go from there. Okay, cool. Stephanie?
Yeah, so do you recommend for the people that want to start early for us to just kind of jump into MBEs, or do you think it's better if we just kind of start off, reviewing outlines and diving back into the material?
So there's a million ways to do an early start. And my suggestion is don't get overwhelmed and try to do everything in an early start, because then it could be counterproductive. So I always say you should pick 2 to 3 subjects in your early start period that you want to focus on. Maybe those are the 3 subjects that you struggled with the most. Maybe you choose one subject that you're actually okay with, just to give you some positive momentum to get back into it. Like, all right, I like contracts. Let me start with a quick refresher of that, do some MBEs just to get back into it and get some momentum. And then follow up with an adequate subject, right? That was like, this is decent. And then finish with the hard one. You can choose. You can go 3 hard, 3 easy, or mix it up. And then once you choose those 2 to 3 subjects, Stephanie, from there, based off of your identified weaknesses, you can then use that to determine how you should, practice that subject. So for example, we're going to talk later about the legally fit early start. And what I'm going to recommend our students do is they start off the week with a particular subject. So next Monday, let's say you decide contracts is a class you want to start with. Well, in the beginning of that week, get reacclimated to that class. Watch a lecture video if you want to, do some outlines if you want to, whatever it is, just to get back with the law. And then for the rest of the week, then that's where you do practice. And then there's where you can tweak it depending on, if I'm really struggling with the MBE, let me do a lot of MBE for contracts, but somebody else may struggle with their writing. So it's like, let me see a bunch of writing, but pick 2 to 3 subjects, focus on one subject a week, start with that week of getting back into it, and then use the rest of that week to focus in on wherever your weaknesses are. Awesome, you're welcome. Next, Nupur.
Hi. My question was, how they give us the school breakdown of, especially with your MBE,
Yes.
would you be able to give us any tips on how to read that? Because I'm actually not really sure how to make sense of what they're showing us to be able to find out what my weaknesses are, if you have time.
Oh, absolutely. And so basically just like how to read that score sheet.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's save that towards the end. And then maybe what I could do is have somebody share their score, and then we can kind of go through it and like go through how to read that to then identify your weaknesses.
Okay, thank you so much.
Of course, you're welcome. All right. And then I think that was all the questions. I think somebody else had their hand up, maybe it got answered. So my last tip in this phase of creating your attack plan is working. All right, just out of curiosity, right? We have about 57 people in here. How many people plan on working during this next bar prep? Can you raise your hand? All right, let's see. Got some on this side. So a lot of us plan on working. Yeah. So good. That's what we want to talk about. And first thing, let me give a disclaimer, is that it's pretty hard to give advice because everybody's work situation is different and their work demands are different. So you always have to kind of like figure out your situation and make it suited to studying for the bar as much as possible. All right. So here are my tips. Let me go in order. First one is please prioritize your bar studies. All right. And when I say this, it's like, try to work as little as you can. And again, I hate saying this because it's like, look, we all got to make money. We got to be able to afford to take this test. And we don't want to stop working. You know, we were in school for 3 years. A lot of us were not working in school. We're working. We don't want to stop working. So, but the idea is that this test is so hard. You want to give yourself as much time to hone in and have undistracted study time to focus on it so you can pass and then work as much as you want because you don't have this thing looming over you. So the very first thing is, if you're in a job that you can like actually consider, right, taking a leave or just actually leaving and coming back or coming back to a new job, definitely consider it, you know, and this is again where everybody's in a different situation. Some people need the job or really want the job where they're at. And so you have to figure out how to make that work. So I'll leave that to you guys to figure out what situation you're in, but try to prioritize your bar studying, because after you pass this bar, that's where you can put this behind you and really take off in your career. All right, next. So let's go ahead and say you do stay at your job and now you're either working part-time or full-time. Okay, so one of the biggest issues that I see is that students don't really have a clear structure and they're just like studying with whatever leftover time they have from work. In the beginning, you need to have a clear work schedule with clear boundaries. All right, so that this way you can say, all right, you know, you come up with this plan, you go to your employer. All right. And let's say for Stephanie, maybe that looks like, hey, 2 out of the 5 days during the week, I will be taking off to study. Well, maybe for Napure, how that looks is I'm going to work Monday through Friday, but I'm going to work from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. So I have the mornings to study every morning, and that's where I'm going to do it. So whatever it is, right? And you can get creative, hopefully, with yourself and your employer to figure out how to make it work. Come up with a plan, run it by them so you have clarity, and it's not giving you anxiety throughout bar prep where you're just like, all right, I did 2 hours, I think, on Monday, right? And it's just kind of all over the place. Once you do that, you should then have an accurate estimate of how many study hours you have every week. All right. And so then that takes me into my next tip, which is prioritize your study time with what is most effective and needed. So if a full-time studier has, let's say, 80 hours a week to study and you have 40, well, it's clearly you're not going to be able to do as much work. But it's good to know, all right, I have 40. And then from that 40, if you've then, as we've talked about already, identified your weaknesses, you can say, like, out of those 40 hours, if I really struggled with MBE last time, let's say 20 of those hours need to be dedicated to practicing MBE each week, right? If I really struggled with understanding the law, right, maybe 10 to 15 hours need to be on making sure I'm diving back into the material so I can have a better understanding for both the essay and the MBE. So again, I can't get into all of the different combinations on how it works, but again, start with, All right, I'm estimated to have 40 hours of study time. Here were my weaknesses in the law and my skills. And here is the soft like distribution of time that I want to create. You're going to be way better off doing it in this structured way as opposed to winging it while you're working. And then the last thing that I want to share for everybody, especially for those that are working, do not overcorrect for whatever your issue was on the last time that you took the exam. The way overcorrecting looks is you didn't do well on the MBE. So the next time, all you focus on is the MBE. And then guess what? Your writing goes down, right? Or vice versa. So make sure you still have a relatively balanced approach. And of course, tweak it to make it personal to your needs, but don't overcorrect that you then create another problem in something that was a strength at one point. Okay, so those are the tips. The moral of the story regarding working is if you can, do not work during bar prep, but if you must, try to minimize those work hours to as little as possible. From there, come up with a clear work schedule versus study schedule. Take those estimated study hours and divvy those up based off of your identified strengths and weaknesses. Okay, so let me go ahead and jump back into the PDF. And now we're going to transition a bit here. Oh, I'm sorry, before we do that too, any questions on working before I move on that I didn't touch on? Okay, cool. So now we're going to talk a little bit more about Legally Fit and how we can help you guys in this process, in this next round, become successful. So here are our bar prep options for upcoming February. We're going to have a live bar prep program, a self-study bar prep program, and then there's also private coaching. So private coaching is something that is becoming more and more popular in bar prep overall, and especially with February students, because again, you guys have identified needs after taking that exam the first time, having those score sheets and knowing what you need to work on. Right. But the programs are still good. And I've been telling a lot of people that I've been having conversations with that if you're coming over to Legally Fit from a different program, one of the biggest differences between Legally Fit and everybody else is the level of understanding that you'll have with the topics. We're going to explain the law in a way where you're going to actually understand it. And from there, the theory is perform better on the essay and the MBE. So you're going to be able to get all the materials, videos, hypos that help explain that material in our programs. And so we have a live program where we'll be doing live workshops twice a week. You also get office hours to come in and ask questions, detailed schedule, et cetera, et cetera. And there's also then the self-study option where basically you don't take part in any of the live things. You don't get essay grading, or you can double check on that. But the idea is you're pretty much saying, I want to go through this on my own. And you have all the materials to do it. Okay. Here's the timeline for bar prep. So 11/16, which is tomorrow, we're going to start the official Legally Fit early start. So for everybody that decides, hey, I'm ready to start with Legally Fit, we're going to open up an early start program to you guys where we're going to give you guys a schedule, early materials, right? And we're going to be doing some workshops where we're going to be covering the essays from the recent July exam and walking through those and talking through them. That early start program is going to start tomorrow, and it's going to be for all those that sign up between today and tomorrow. You can still sign up after that. And then we have orientation week that is going to be on December 5th to 11th. During orientation week is where you're like transitioning into bar prep, where we're teaching you all the formulas, how the program is going to work, the schedule, et cetera. And then on 12/12, the actual program begins. Going into a little bit more detail on our early start, here's what it was: access to materials early, the workshops that we just mentioned, you get an early start schedule, early start orientation, which will be tomorrow at 7 p.m. via Zoom, where we'll go through just how the early start will work. And there is an early start discount. So if you guys go ahead and decide you do want to sign up, we're going to reward that with $300 off any of the programs that we just talked about a second ago. All right. And so before we wrap up on this quick little intro on Legally Fit and what we're doing, I wanted to leave you guys with some key stats And so the first stat is we are successful with repeat takers from Barbary, Themis, Kaplan, and one-timers. Just letting you guys know that you can transition from any company and come over here and be successful. And I thought this was a good time to bring in our next guest speaker. Her name is Jessica. She is another awesome individual who we were very grateful came through our Legally Fit doors. Again, I'll let her tell her story and give her personal message to you guys as you get ready to take this exam again. So Jessica, I'll pass it over to you.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Hi. So my name is Jessica. I am a family law attorney. I graduated in 2019 and took the July 2019 exam, didn't pass. Online exam wasn't it either. And then I took the February 2022, which was the first in-person exam since COVID, after using Legally Fit and passed. And, really credit is all to Legally Fit, obviously. And Dee was talking about the transition from various bar prep programs to Legally Fit. And I was one of those students that definitely fell into the materials buffet rabbit hole. The reality is if you've already taken it and you didn't pass, it's more likely than not that you have whatever material you use with the previous program and then some, right? Like we all fall into that anxiety trap where it's like, I think I should be learning a little bit more. And then we reach for like something else, or our friends give us this or whatever it is. So then we end up with this buffet of just all this material, and it feels good at the moment. It feels like you're doing something, but in reality, you kind of just getting, nowhere. And that's how I felt, where I just had so much, I didn't really know how to even begin. And I came from, the first time I did the big companies and, Barbary, and that didn't work. And then I went to a private tutor, and in the middle of it, I knew it wasn't for me. It just wasn't hitting, the material wasn't working out. Even if it was a private tutor, the material wasn't it. And so it went to show that you can have both. You can have a big company that it just overall the fit is not good for you. And then you can have a private tutor and the tutoring can be great, but the material's is not sticking with you. And that was my personal experience. And so when I talked with DeAndre, it was right in the middle of, I think, my personal tutoring. And I decided to pivot after listening to Legally Fit and getting some sample materials. And I made the leap of faith and I said, this is exactly what I need. This is, the ability to explain a concept to you, the ability to understand certain lectures was extremely easy for me. And it just broke everything down. His ability to explain concepts, his support team, the office hours, the tutoring that I got was unparalleled, and it didn't compare to the 3 to 4 probably companies that I had used, and I took it 3 times. And so it just was, when we are studying for the exam, we want to know the how do you study, the what materials do you use, when do you study for a certain topic, when do you stop studying for this, when do you put that on hold and then pick it up again later because you're going to fall behind schedule, and then what is my schedule, when should I start doing PTs, and then you got MBEs and essays, and the Legally Fit just broke it down to where they give you the how, they give you the what, and they give you the when. And for me, one of the other most important concepts, and Jordan touched on this, Dee touched on this earlier, was the mental game that bar prep comes, that the bar exam comes. So you're dealing with bar prep mental game, then you're dealing with the bar exam mental game, and then, processing and coming to terms with not having passed it, not attaching meaning to the results and not attaching any type of meaning of what that means for you. Processing all of that, you not having to worry about the how, the what, the when is a breath of fresh air. And so when I was able to get all of that, to get a schedule that was working for me, whether you're working or whether you're not working, having that schedule, having the focus on your mental support. A lot of bar prep programs out there that I tried don't touch on the mental aspect and the mental support of bar prep. It's go, 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 go. It's lecture, lecture, lecture after. It's hours and hours of sitting there and lecture. And you forget about the possible burnout. You forget about your mental stability during the whole entire thing. And having the pieces brought together, having the outlines, you get the lectures, you get the hypos, you get the MBE, live calls, you get the support group that you can opt in and out of. You get a great administrative support group, you get office hours. Having all of that and the mental support was just everything that I didn't know I needed, it's a combination and the best of both worlds. And again, because you've, have already taken the bar exam, more than what you didn't know the first time. Everything that Jordan said in the beginning, 10 times agreed with that. It hit the nail right on the head. And choosing a bar prep program alone is very overwhelming because you don't know what to look for. You thought you knew what to look for the first time. Everybody's telling you all these great things, that you need to do, but you're hoping you're making the right decision. And I'm literally here to tell you, this is the sign to make this decision because it's brutal. It's brutal when you have to, hope that you're making the right decision in choosing a program because it's costly. It's very costly, and having to purchase, different programs and experiencing a private tutor, experiencing different companies and coming to this, it's almost, it can be detrimental to your mental health. It can be detrimental financially, but overall, like Jordan was saying, it's, shifting that perspective and processing it all, and then being able to listen and coming to a company that just has all the pieces together. And that was Legally Fit for me. And I will stand on this hill and tell you guys that every single day, because I've been through various different bar prep programs, and it doesn't matter how many times you take the bar exam. Like I said, it took me 3 times, but seeing when I was trying to figure out which program to go with, I ventured out, and it's an overwhelming amount of programs. And so, I'm here to tell you guys that you guys are in the right spot. You guys are in the right place. Legally Fit has what you guys need, and you guys have what it needs. And so combine that together. You guys are in great hands.
Awesome. Jessica, let me, I'm going to share a little personal story between us with them, in that I was telling Jessica for quite some time too, like, Jessica, come over to Legally Fit. I got you. And she was like, I'm going to go this route this time, D, but I'll let you know next time. And then she finally came over and was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, right? But outside of that, I wanted to ask you one more thing to share with them outside of Legally Fit, because the big reason why I wanted to bring in some guest speakers, and thank you. And I didn't ask, Jessica to share so much about her Legally Fit experience, to the extent that I really wanted her. And I want these guest speakers to be able to relate to you guys because they've been in your shoes. They know how it feels. So 1, thank you for sharing all those great words about us. But 2, can you share something outside of Legally Fit on, what would be your number 1 or, top 2 tips for somebody that has to have gone through this? In your experience, it was 3 times, right? So what would be like a top tip outside of choosing the right program that you would give somebody getting back into this?
I think for me, it would be being able, just having the right support circle around you. And that includes yourself. You know, a lot of the times we can have the right people around us in the right support circle, but ultimately, if our mindset is not in the right place, if we have not processed our the emotions and the anger, like you were saying earlier, if we haven't processed the failure of you know, the passing, you know, what's horrible is we open the exam result, right? And the word that we see on there is fail, you know, and it doesn't feel good.
Harsh.
It's the worst word to put on there. Like, you know, I always said, like, geez, at least put not pass. Like, not pass is better than fail, you know? And so it really is a hit to our ego, because we tried and studied so hard, so many hours. And so I would definitely say the number one thing outside of choosing the best bar prep program for you would be focusing on the support circle around you. And that includes yourself, having compassion with yourself, being kind to yourself, giving yourself grace for having gone through this. The battle is not taking the exam. The battle is studying for the exam and getting from the first day of bar prep to that moment that you sit down. And that moment that you sit down, it's just everything is, you know, in your hands, in your world. And mostly everyone that I know walks out of that exam saying, dude, that was totally doable. I think, you know, I just needed to do X, Y, Z or whatever it is, right? Like the exam is totally doable. There's just so much hype around it. There's, you know, there's all this anxiety around it. And a lot of the times it's, you know, it's in our mind, and we are our worst critic. We are our worst critic, our worst enemies at times, especially during these times when we've already failed it once or twice. We're so hard on ourselves. So I'd say support circle and being kind to yourself, showing yourself that compassion.
Absolutely. Yeah, guys. And it's like, I'm gonna be the first one to tell you, I freaking, you know, am the first one that's like, I don't want this to be a big therapy session. I don't want to talk about mental the entire time, but it's like, it's so hard not to, because it's such a huge component. You know, I just want to jump into contracts. I just want to jump into property. What do we got to do? But that is the issue sometimes, that we jump too much in, we jump too quickly into that and not do this step. And then now when it comes to property, you're already feeling burnt out or upset, and you're not getting through, again, all the practice you have to do. And it's not sitting in and soaking in because you're still crying during the time, or upset and angry, all these different things. So like, yeah, they say the bar is half mental. It becomes even more mental if you don't pass the first time. And so, yeah, that's the reason for the repetition there. And hopefully you guys are hearing the consistent theme here on what the focus is in this early start, right? And these next few weeks is the time to really focus on that. And it's going to be a challenge too, like throughout the process. It's not going to stop, but you can do some of the bulk of the work now, but you're still going to have to quiet those negative thoughts and quiet those spiraling thoughts when you're in the middle of the program too. So awesome, Jessica. Thank you for coming in and sharing. We're getting close to the 8 o'clock. Yeah, we're about almost done. I have a few more other slides, and then we have one more guest speaker, and then we'll open up to Q&A for anybody else that wants to stick around. So let me go ahead and share screen. We have two more quick stats to share with you guys. Repeat takers taking Legally Fit have seen 100 point increases in their score. So just a reminder, right? Whether you are, and this goes in law school, whether you're trying to be a 4.0 student and you're top of the class, we can work with you. Or if you're really struggling and you need some, you know, like large improvement, we can work with you as well. And then, yeah, on the other side of that, we do have a high pass rate with those that were just right on that hump, right? And just need that extra, you know, little change or extra boost to get over this exam. All right. And so we go ahead and say success is around the corner. So we saw Muhammad Ali get knocked down on the floor, Lorraine. We saw him get back up and throw some punches. And then now we see him victorious. All right. And so again, I know, guys, like, it's like, what? Like, but hey, everybody can't have the story of marrying their high school sweetheart. Right? Everybody can't have the story of freaking finding their dream job on the first attempt. You know, a lot of us go through the trials and tribulations. So just remember, this is part of your story, right? You're going to be able to look your kids, your grandkids in the eyes and say, I made it through this challenge. I got up off the mat. I didn't give up. I didn't quit. I didn't just change career paths. I got it done. All right. So before we go, I saved this last spot of guest speaker for a woman named Jeno. She is amazing. I've known her for quite some time. After taking Legally Fit in Passing, she's actually worked with us in the past to work with repeat takers, to help coach them through the process, to again, share her expertise and her experience of going through it in your shoes. And she's just a person of like so much wisdom. And honestly, I just love being around her as much as I can. So I'm super grateful she was able to come today. So yeah, Jeno, I'll pass it over to you to share your story and your tips for everybody here.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Yeah, good. Okay. So first off, I just want to say thank you for sticking around to the end of the presentation and to hear me out. I promise I won't take too much of your time. And I just want to share with you a little bit about my story. And, you know, like DeAndre said, I worked with Legally Fit students in the past. And I always want to be that source for anybody that needs a friend, a motivated speaker, someone in their corner. So please feel free to reach out, and if you so want to, I'm here for you guys. So yes, I worked with DeAndre. I don't even remember when now, but it's been a couple years, maybe 2019, 2018. I don't remember exactly the first time I took Legally Fit. Didn't pass. And I came back to Legally Fit. I came back to Legally Fit because I thought, the program was well worth my time, and I knew the investment I was making, and I knew the quality of the program. So I did a repeat course with DeAndre, a live in-class session, which I loved because yes, I could have self-studied, but I felt like I needed that discipline and that encouragement that you so need, day in and day out, because it is tough, right? It's tough to go through this, not only 3 months for once, but then do it again, another, set of months. And then I passed in February 2020. So obviously I was scared to take the February 2020 bar because you hear like these monstrous things and it's a lot harder. But honestly, I think the hardest part in all this is your mental state, which I won't touch so much upon it because we've, I think, run it to the ground by now, but it truly is, I think, half of the battle in this. So I had a friend who introduced me to Legally Fit, and I want to share this story with you guys because I think it really helped me maybe just kind of like be in my sadness for a moment and anger and frustration, and you feel like such a failure, right? Because you've done so well for so long, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait, I didn't pass. I'm this stupid. Like I felt stupid and I felt like I was in a nightmare. But you just kind of have to keep pushing, be in that maybe state for some time, give it a day, give it a week, but then pick yourself up. Because only you can get yourself through this, right? As Jessica mentioned, you can have this support circle around you, but it won't work until you also work for yourself. So really, I think a lot of it has to do with you and how you're perceiving these next, 2 to 3 months of work. And I'll just, share some of my own tips that I hope will help you in this next stage. Coming up. But for me, it's just about perspective and minimizing the exam. I think a lot of us get in our heads and think, how am I going to do this? How am I going to get over this hump, right? But it's totally doable. And whenever I felt that way about myself, I just kept thinking, there's so many others who've passed. If they passed, why can't I pass? I went to law school. I'm able to do this. I'm smart enough to do this. And I have the honor and privilege to sit in this exam one more time, right? Not everyone can do this. So it's okay. You have to do it again, but you're going to get over that hump. But really just minimize that test in your head, because if you make it this big beast, you're not going to get over it, right? So just have that confidence in you and just tell yourself, I'm able to do this. I'm smart enough to do this. And it's just a set of questions and it's a set of problems, and I know the law, and if you've studied hard enough, if you've learned it, you should be able to just work through the problems and answer the questions. And then because we're repeaters, right? I think like DeAndre said at the beginning, identify that weakness in you, and really, instead of shying away from it, really lean into that, right? Just give it those 5 extra minutes, give it those 10 extra minutes. If you've got to reread, what a certain rule is, then so do it 10 times. But what's important is that you get over that, because learning that is going to build that confidence in you, and it's going to close that gap of knowledge or lack of knowledge that perhaps you have, right? And I think that was something that DeAndre always like honed in on us and would tell us, just give it one more shot. You're going to close that gap, that lack of knowledge that you have in that area. And I think a lot of us just shy away from it because we're scared or we're like anxious about it. But no, that's what's going to just get us to more of that comfort level with the exam. I mean, I wrote down here, be your own cheerleader and really embrace the hard days and enjoy the good days. And those wins that you have. There's going to be days, right? Like I'm sure we all had, where we did really well on MBEs and we were like, oh my God, this is amazing, I'm going to pass. And you're like on a high. And then the next day you get like a 30% on con law and you're like, what the heck, right? But like that happens, and that's okay because we're working our minds so much. But just really embrace those days that are hard and the good ones too. It's an emotional roller coaster, but don't let it beat you down. Because if you stay down, you're just wasting time, right? So just pump yourself up for the day. If it's a tough exam, go for a walk, take a moment, but really clear that mental space so you're able to take on the next challenge, because you can do it and you will, and it's only a matter of time. And something that I had a really good friend that I did the bar with, who I think really pushed me and held me accountable, which I hope you all have someone in your corner. But whenever we had good days, right, we would treat ourselves to like a nice dinner, or, you know, we would take some time off during the end of the day. And then on bad days, we would like vent to each other, go for a walk, but we'd always try to come back to it because it's doable. And I'm just so excited for you all to go through this again, which I know doesn't sound so good, but trust me, you have your whole life ahead of you to dive into this career. And as a working woman, let me tell you, it doesn't stop, right? And sometimes I think, man, being a student is so much fun because the responsibilities were a little less or a little bit different. But yeah, so I'm excited for you guys, and please reach out if you feel so inclined to do so. I'm here for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jenna. Yeah, can all of the guest speakers, please, if you're again comfortable, I think everybody mentioned they were, put your like contact information in the chat if anybody wanted to reach back out. As they're doing that, I just wanted to like touch on a few things as well of what Jenna said. Number one, right? Don't take it so serious. And this is not something that we can all do. Some of us are very just like serious people, but to the extent that some of you guys are borderline, try not to, again, make this more than what it is. It's a test, right? It's a test for us to all be lawyers, right? Like top 1% type of career in the world. And so it sucks, right? This is our world. It's our first world problem. We didn't pass our licensing test, but it's going to be okay, right? And if you kind of have that mindset of like staying blessed, staying like grateful for all the things around you that you have and all those things, it can just kind of keep the anxiety and pressure lower when you realize already good how you do have it. Number two, leaning into the part of the day you don't want. It made me so happy, right? That like some of these messages that I try to impart, just survive for so long, and that Jenna is still remembering that and sharing that in her own advice and tips, and 100%. And I think it's something that, for whatever it's worth, is so good to approach in so much of your day-to-day lives in bar prep and out. So like, a quick example outside of bar prep, it's like, let's say you wake up and you have all your chores to do today. And one of those chores is washing the dishes, and you just hate washing the dishes. Like, what do most of us do? We'll like put washing the dishes to the end because we just cannot like stand it. We don't want to do it. And then sometimes you don't even end up getting into it because it was the last thing on the list. And now it's just like, just staying there. And now it's anxiety. The dishes are still there, et cetera, right? Well, we want to do the opposite. As Jenna was saying, you want to like wake up and you're like, you know what? I don't want to do those dishes. So I'm going to do those dishes first and get it out of the way and try my best to enjoy it. And so if we can take that into bar prep and have excitement around where am I struggling? Excitement around like, right, what is the area of law that I'm not getting? And then having confidence that you can close that gap, then there it's like, all right, that's where momentum is built, and you want to keep studying and you want to keep going, and that positive momentum during bar prep. All right. And then the last thing I wanted to say is that all three of these, students, they didn't necessarily share this aspect of it, but I want to say are great examples of what we should all in here who are retaking this strive to be, as far as they are people who were knocked down by this exam. sometimes once, sometimes twice, 3 times, etc. But they got back in. And I think it is such a humbling and just honorable way to go about things, to like go into something that you have, again, quote unquote, failed, and come in and be humbled by that experience and still give it everything you have, right? With the chance of not passing again, but still leaving it all out on the court. So that way you can put yourself in the best position to pass. And I saw each of these 3 do that, right? They did not give up. They did not take the foot off the gas. They came back and gave it everything they had with no fear of failing and just leaving it all out there. So yeah, it just was super awesome to see you guys come back. Jenna, was there a quick thing you wanted to add on to that?
Yeah, you were talking about the leaning in when we try to shy away from stuff. And I remember one time I don't know what exam we were, doing, but I just want to share this tidbit because I thought it was so helpful and I still use it today. I think it was like we were going to either use EDP or SDP in con law. And I
Okay.
was like, wait, and I like didn't even address it because I was like in the exam, I was like, oh my God, but it could be this or it could be that. And that was my process as I'm going to write the exam. And I didn't write anything. So I lost points, right? And so then I came to you and I said, DeAndre, I was stuck here and I didn't know which way to choose. And you said, well, if you thought about both routes, just put both routes in. You're going to get points, right? And whether you're wrong, then you won't get points, but at least it was still in there. And so even to this day, whenever I think, or I'm like indecisive about certain things in like a memo or something I have to write, I'm like, just put both or make both arguments because one is going to stick, right? So yeah, just lean into that and don't shy away because sometimes we get in our own way. It's just so much easier to do so, but just a little thing to remind yourself of because you probably know more than you think you do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, y'all. Is 8:10. We did pretty good, right? If you know Legally Fit, we like to overvalue our overpack our sessions and give as much as we can, but I think we did pretty good. It's 8:10. And so for everybody that's got their information, thank you for coming. Like this event was really geared towards primarily to just give you guys a place to come, not feel alone and feel supported in that, yeah, like you're not alone and it's going to be okay. On top of that, it was to give you some tidbits on Legally Fit. And if you feel like this is the program for you, some ideas on what our vibe is like and what we do to see if this is a good route for you. And then have these awesome guest speakers come. So again, somebody to relate to that has gone through what you're going through and been successful. If anybody wants to stick around for some additional questions, I could stick around for another 20 minutes or so. The first question that we did have was regarding scores and how to interpret those scores. So I'll go into that so we can try to see what our weaknesses are, etc. And I did find while we were going on one that I could pull up myself, so no need to share it. And then everybody can start to like get their own questions ready. But for everybody else, thank you for coming. I wish nothing but the best on this upcoming exam, whether that's Legally Fit or not. Just remember, you got this, you can do it. And of course, if you have any questions for us on our program, feel free to call, go to the website, whatever you may have. So thank you. And yeah, let's jump into the questions. So, and then the guest speakers, thank you guys so much for coming. Definitely don't feel like you guys have to stay. Jenna did mention she's also a super mom, so I'm sure she has to get back to some duties. But thank you guys so much for coming, and I'll talk to you guys all soon. Okay, so let me pull up this score sheet. Who was it that asked the question? So I know who I can like address in answering this.
It was me.
Is that Napir?
Yeah, that's me. Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, of course. So this is one that I have right here is what I was sent. So this is an example. Let's go through on how I would read this, right? So first off, this would be an example, like I would go straight to my scaled written and scaled MBE score. And I see here, it's like 1347 on both, right? That's pretty rare, to be honest. So it's like, it's not so much I have a weakness, super identified weakness in this skill. Also, I'm looking at my total scale score and it's like, all right, I was about 43 points off. So I'm like, not too far off, but again, I need to kind of put in some more work. So that's how I'm interpreting my total scale score. I'm not too far off, but I still need to put in some work. And then I'm looking at my scaled written and scaled MBE to see if that says something to me. And here it really says I need to work on both. Then I go into the MBE percent below. So Napier, just out of curiosity, what were you thinking when you were reading this yourself? Were you thinking the higher number is better or the lower number is better?
I honestly just don't know. Like, I don't know how to interpret what they're saying. So I
Yeah.
can't give it.
You're just like, I don't know. I'm just gonna, wait till I can get some advice. Fair enough. So the higher the number, the better, right? So with this particular person, right, they're around the 70% mark for contracts and crim law. So that's telling me, if I'm that student, is like, look, I'm at a good place with those two classes. And then I see where my improvement needs to be, starting off with Civ Pro being the number one, as that's the lowest. And then torts, right, is a close second at 20, right? And it kind of goes from there. So that's how you want to read that. The higher number, the better. So here, if I was trying to identify my weaknesses, right, my top three would be Civ Pro, torts, and evidence. All right. Sometimes these scores don't necessarily like connect with what we thought our weaknesses are. And again, sometimes it's like, maybe my understanding of that law is not as good as I think it is. And so that's something to, like, again, reconsider. But I would start off with these scores, not so much what you thought, your weaknesses were when, identifying it in this stage. And then going over to the written side. All right. So you see here, we have a 60, 65, 60, 60, 55, 60. So this kind of talks to a very popular, point in essay grading, where it's like, I thought 60s and 65s were passing. And it's not that you want to be able to like get all 60s. All 60s are not going to really do it. It's a combination of 60s and 65s that'll kind of get you to that hump. And, because in theory, if you see here, we pretty much have an average of all 60s. If you, average out that 65 and that 55 to a 60, and then everything else is a 60, and that gave us then a 1347. So we need to factor in some 65s there. And ideally, which is always my goal personally, and then also my goal for my students, is that hopefully you get that one essay where you just knock it out of the park, right? Try to get that 75, that 80, so that can then account for a little cushion on the other essays. So yeah, that's like my quick little debrief. Any follow-up questions on how to read that score sheet?
Not for me, but thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. All right. And so remember, guys, MBE percent below, the higher the number, the better. And so again, start with the lower numbers. Those are typically then going to be your weaker subjects. If you guys remember the order of the essays and which essays you scored lowly on, that can also help with identifying your weak subjects. All right. We have some follow-up questions. Tori, what's up?
Hey, I have a quick question. What is the local and national? Like, what are those numbers? Like, what does that mean?
Funny enough, I've never actually paid attention to those. I'm not sure. Let me pull up on my computer like the full letter and see if it says something on that. I think that's just like your local and national rank. Percentage of all examinees taking the administration of the bar who score below your score based on national data. Right. So maybe what it is because the MBE is nationwide. So it's kind of your ranking based off of everybody versus local, then might be your state. Yeah.
Oh, like your median, or like where you fell on that level
Within that pool of people.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, but I never really use that. Yeah.
Okay.
All
right, cool. Next, Lorraine.
Hey, Dee. So would someone be able to look at mine? Because the reason why I think I feel so off kilter right now is that I went in feeling strong because I was legally fit, right? And the subjects that I, in my head, was more concerned about were the subjects that I ended up scoring the highest in. And the subjects that I did feel really comfortable with were the subjects I got bashed on, like where I bombed, like, and even on my MBE, there's a disparity in my percentages from like an almost 80%, like I scored an almost like in that 80, and then as low as like almost a 5. So, and they're transposed. So it's like, the one that I scored so low on MBE, where it's like I must have gotten every single one.
You thought that
And
you loved that class, yeah.
I loved it. In all my practice, I didn't have any issues with it. And then the ones that I did have issue with was the one I scored the highest on MBE, where it like was a
Yeah,
total disparity. So I feel real backward right now because I'm like, I don't even know if I can trust what I'm thinking that you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's why I'm feeling so off kilter. Is like, I was like, but I thought I was like rocking towards and I bombed towards and I was worried about contracts. I even forgot my D and my D taco and on the essay. But yet in my MBE, that was like my highest scoring. I mean, and I scored beyond, it was so disparative where I was like, is this a mistake? Like, what am I missing here?
yeah.
And so that's why I think I'm feeling so off kilter right now that
So, I mean, one, I'm not sure if you experienced this in law school, but that is almost just like a very typical feeling with law school examinations, and the bar is not, really sometimes too different in that, like, I can remember personally sometimes going into an exam thinking like, oh my God, I just bombed that exam. And then I ended up with a great grade, right? And then the vice versa. There's times where like, oh man, I just crushed that exam. And then there's times where it's not. So like, I wouldn't think too much into it outside. It's just one, when it comes to essays, like the arbitrary grading nature of essays. And then
oh, sorry, that was my
oh no, that was my computer. That wasn't you. I appreciate you jumping on that one for me. And so basically I was saying, yeah, that like, that's the nature of it. And I don't want you to think too much into it, right? All you want to do is just kind of like, all right, based off of the exam, this is where I need to focus my attention, and don't try to like make sense of, why that was the case so much. The other thing that I'll share, and I think this is a great piece of advice for everybody, is that especially when it comes to the MBE, this is another, now having gone through it, opportunity to highlight that the practice questions aren't always exactly like the bar exam. And so, that's just the nature of the beast. The California bar exam releases the past essays up till the very one that just took place and the PTs, but they do not, the NCBE does not release the questions because they don't, want to rewrite them or whatever it may be. And so you're just doing this practice from different places that, again, may not be the perfect preparation for the exam. So all that to say, I am a big proponent of, I think all of the companies out there that focus on MBEs, are adequate to get the job done. People have taken UWorld and got it done. People have taken Adaptabar and got it done, right? Best Multis is one out there that people have taken and done. So all of them are capable of giving you the practice needed to get over the hump. And if you are taking this again, I suggest going into a different bank of questions so you can get different, right, type of questions they've made, because all of them are using the same like group of licensed questions, which are around like 1,700. And then after that 1,700, they have their own questions. So now going to that different source, maybe you're now tested in a different way to add more to your repertoire. So that would be, right, as far as interpreting it and kind of making sense of it, it's hard to do, but I would just say, hey, these are the scores that I was low on. Let me get back into practice. And when I am practicing, let me consider adding some more exposure to different styles of questions or better explanations or different explanations from a different source.
awesome. Thank you, Dee.
All right, Lorraine. Arthur,
Hey D, how are you?
what's up, man? I'm good. Yourself?
Good, thank you. My question actually was a little different, so I wasn't sure if you're ready to move on or not yet.
Yeah, definitely.
So mine was more of a scheduling, I guess, advice if you had time for it. So me, the first time around, I feel like my problem was I feel like I burned myself out every day. I would wake up from the morning until night. Like I was just in my room day and night, just doing this. I put in so much hard work, and obviously I didn't get the results I wanted. This time around, I want to take like a step back, trying to make more time for myself. I feel like the small things like, oh, okay, once I'm done, like be able to like, let's just say cut off at 8 p.m., watch like 30 minutes of TV, be with the family for like 30 minutes, like stuff I was stripped away from the first time without feeling guilty. Because the first time around, it was like morning to night in my room, and then like 11, close the laptop, go into bed, and not give myself time to like get my mind off what I just did the entire day. and then
Yeah.
force myself to sleep. And I was in this repetition for 3 months of not clearing my mind and then starting fresh the next day. So like, I guess my question is how to not feel guilty to like calling it early. So like the small pleasures in life, like you can not feel stripped away from. So like, it doesn't feel like you're just this robot in your room for 3 months.
Man, great question. I feel like we should bring in, half of the working community out there in on that question, because it's just like, that's just a struggle overall of like, how to not feel guilty to stop and take care of ourselves. And so first off, like, let me share with you kind of what my experience was and how what you're saying, looked in my experience, where I typically ended my night. I mean, as I told you guys in bar prep, it ranges. Like some nights I'd end at 8, sometimes I'd have to go to 11 or 10, but I tried to like minimize those and keep them to only when they were needed. And then after that, I ended every single night with a walk or run in my neighborhood, just outside, right? Because you're saying inside all day, we got to spend some time outside and get out and remember there's a world out there, fresh, something to truly distract our minds from what we just did all day. Because yeah, you need something to allow that to rest. And after I would do that, I used to watch the most ridiculous TV show, the most ridiculous. It was a freaking alligator like wrestling like random. So like in Florida they have like nuisance alligators. Like alligators will just like show up at the barbershop or show up at like the grocery store, and you have to call like these people and they have to come and like get the alligator and take them out. But all that to say, it was something that was just so mindless and I could laugh at. It wasn't like drama filled and like my emotions are in it and I'm like all like invested in the characters and all that stuff. So like, I think some type of TV could be good, but I definitely don't want you guys like, all right, I got to get back now to like binge watching House of Dragons and like figuring out, what's going to happen next episode. Cause like it's keeping that mind going. And again, I think your question really goes to a bigger issue that's larger than just bar prep. And it's like, how do I turn my brain off? Like, how do I shut down? And I think we just have to like find the things that work and then try to be as disciplined and execute on just what those things are. And then in that time, see if you can ask that of your support system to help you in doing that. So like, right, I'm not sure who's in the house with you, but like, hey, spouse, partner, mom, dad, whoever it may be, when it gets to around 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, come in and just give me a soft reminder that I need to start wrapping it up soon, and hey, everybody in my household, like when I am done for the day, I'm gonna need about 30 minutes to myself. I know a lot of us in here have kids, right? And it's like, I can only imagine what it's like going straight from studying straight into like, all right, like parent duties. Like maybe you need 30 minutes to just like breathe, go outside and walk. So try different things. Those are the things that work for me. A mindless TV show, getting outside every night and just having a moment of reflection under the stars and just like, oh man, this is crazy, but here we are type of thing. And that the last thing, and hopefully this message helps, is that you just have to let go of feeling guilty, right? And again, like who knows, again, in this larger issue where that came from, that we all feel so obligated to keep working nonstop. But the reality is, Arthur, as we've all seen when it happens, is that it's counterproductive, right? We're putting in too many hours to where what we're doing is not then sticking in, and I can't then just rest on that to then wake up fresh and get back into it. And so if we just take a second to understand that this is in fact counterproductive, I should then feel good in taking a break. And so again, it's a struggle, it's something that we can talk about through bar prep and get the constant reminders. But I think that's overall what we have to do, because we're kind of reversing this modern trend of just go, go, go. And it's hard to shut off. Awesome, man. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you. Because that's exactly what I was dealing with. Like I said, like a small, like watching the last fourth quarter of the Laker game, for example, I was like, no, I can't do this. I need to put in like an hour more, where I know that hour I'm not even going to be learning anything, It's just to tell myself, oh, I put in another hour.
Exactly. And know that it's okay. No, in fact, watching the fourth quarter of that Laker game is better than just staring at your computer, glazing over it when you're like burnt out already for that night. Exactly. So I'm here to tell you, like, yeah, especially towards the end of that night, know when to call it. And then there's sometimes like where students have come to me during bar prep and it's just like, man, like I'm about 3-4 weeks in and I'm burnt out. I'll tell them, hey, like, you know what? I know you have assignments for this weekend. Take this weekend off. It's okay. You know, like for the overall, it's okay. Put it behind you. Go to the beach by yourself, reflect, whatever it may be that recharges you. Keep that. So like, just keep that at the top of your list, Arthur, as you go into this next process, both on a micro and a macro. Make sure you're taking care of yourself. All right.
Thank you.
All right. You're welcome, man. Next, Sarah.
Hi, I have a little bit more of a personal question and I just want your opinion on it. It's somewhat similar to like what Lorraine said, but when I went through my scores, I had a second read for my essays and my disparity was a 70 to a 50. Do you think that's a writing issue or like, because that was also the difference in my pass. So like,
So you're saying you were in the reread category
yeah,
and for one particular essay,
yeah. And that would have been the difference between a pass and a fail.
that like literally hurts my heart because like that is the exact reason they are talking about changing this exam, and it's just the extreme arbitrary nature of this exam. It makes no sense, you know, like, so let me just go ahead and be on that side of it and tell you that a 70 is literally considered a like above, right, passing score. 65 is like strong, 70 is like above passing. This person like, right, did really well. A 50 is like, you didn't do well at all, right? You struggled with issue spotting on this, like your analysis was really lacking, like there's deep holes that this is like, right? A 60 is like barely passing, if, right? And this is a 50, this is significantly below passing. So to have that range, right? And you're not the first person that I've seen, it's not common, but I've seen 20-point differentials before on the same essay. And there's nothing I can provide as like an explanation other than a flawed system. There's just no way that that should be the case. And so, you know, there's not much advice to give to that other than like, understand that you're right. Like you could have easily passed this exam and you definitely got caught in this, like this arbitrary nature of the exam. And you want to get back into this and try to perform so well that you objectively passed, right, by miles, that you're not even close. That first read has to be so good that we're not even in reread category. So I feel for you. Yeah, it's like crazy. There's not much of an explanation, but it's like the comfort, hopefully, that you have is that, you know, you were that close to passing before. You're going to only get better with this next round of studying. Because you were that close, make sure you don't get too comfortable and just like, all right, I could just like show up again. Like, no, go into this thing and give it as much as you can, right? If you're not working, give it a full-time study. If you are working, give it as much as you can. So again, that way we're not in that category. We're knocking it out of the park.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And again, I'm so sorry. I hate that when a student is in that situation. I saw a hand up and then it went away. Is that, I think it was, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Mamta?
Hi, DeAndre. Yeah, I had a quick question about Legally Fit, like specifically.
Yeah.
And so I saw that, you know, there's a discount code. Actually, I think it's like a two-pronged question. So if you pay fully, does the discount code apply then? Or like if you went with like a payment plan option, or would it apply then too?
It applies
Absolutely.
to all payments. Yes.
Okay,
Absolutely. It applies
perfect.
to both if you pay full and if you do the progress payment. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And my second question was like, I was curious to see like where you guys were getting like the MBE and like bar essay pool from.
Yeah. So here's how Legally Fit approaches MBE. So one, the bulk of what we do inside Legally Fit to prepare you for the essay and the MBE is our lecture video, our outlines, and our Legally Fit hypos. So basically, to kind of give you like the evolution of our materials and how it got there, I first created our outlines. And then from there, I went into a research project where I went through every single California bar exam dating to 2002. And I went through every single multiple choice question on Adaptive Bar, so around 3,000 questions. And from doing all of that research, I took out and extracted all of the heavily tested rules. And then I adjusted our outline to do two things. One, take out some of the fluff that's not heavily tested. Two, organize the material in a way where you're learning it more or less in the same way you would write it, as opposed to like, okay, here's rules, but then I don't know how to translate that to my writing. So your outlines are actually built for, right, correlation to how you would organize it and what your headings would be, etc. And then the legally fit hypos, what I did there was I extracted all of the patterns of what they like to test and how they like to test. And then I put it in the legally fit way that makes it a little bit more enjoyable to learn, and also provided really in-depth explanations to explain it. So as a quick example of that, let's say I looked over 50 tort battery questions, and one of the popular patterns is they like to do it where the defendant ordered their animal to attack somebody, and you need to be able to analyze that that is a battery. Well, then I saw that pattern, I took that, and then it's like, all right, let's have a legally fit hypo where it's like, all right, Shaggy orders Scooby to attack somebody. So it just kind of provides a memorable experience, but it's the exact same pattern. And then I have an in-depth explanation saying like, here's what you're looking for. Here is the pattern. Here's how you want to attack it. So then that way, when you see the like more dry question on the bar exam or on your practice, it feels familiar and you know what to do, comparing it to something that you do remember. And so that's how we really approach preparing for all of the portions of the exam, specifically the MBE. And then as far as your like day-to-day practice doing the traditional questions, our students then sign up for a bank of questions separately from Legally Fit to get that just traditional practice. So one of the popular options that a lot of students are using now is UWorld. And then there's always the tried and true Adaptabar. I don't think you can really go wrong between the two. I have heard a lot of growing momentum with UWorld and the explanations they provide. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome. All righty. Any other questions? Personal, Legally Fit, scheduling, right? Yeah, next one. Tony, hey, how's it going?
Very, very good. How are you?
Good to see you.
I know. Yeah, good to see you. I just have kind of a personal question. I did not do good in the exam. I thought like I had a good MBE because I was practicing a lot. I was constantly like getting 75, 72%, and I was feeling very confident. And then on exam date, I really bumped, like I did really bad.
Yeah.
So my essays were not my strongest like side ever. It was not my strongest side, but I thought the MBE could help, but it didn't. So now I have both. Like now both are my weaknesses. So have you seen like anyone who like me, my case, I was like 200 points off.
Yeah.
And have you seen like, do you think it's possible to get that passing score like the next bar cycle?
So the answer to that question is that, in my opinion, it's always possible. It's always possible if you, put yourself in the position to like learn from a program that really works for you, whatever, again, that may be. And that's where it's like your job of like, what works best for me, what environment, what materials, etc. So that'd be number one. Number two, why it's possible, as we just saw with what Sarah showed us, it's graded, at least the written portion, in such an arbitrary way that if somebody who wrote a 70 can get knocked down to a 50, somebody that is a 50 could get knocked up to a 70. So sometimes, and I always tell students to shoot their shot, because the way it's graded, it pushes some people up that shouldn't pass, and it takes some people down that should pass. So it just always depends on where we're at, whether that works to our favor or against us. Number three, I would say, is that with that score, it is something that is a challenge, right? And you should know going into it that a 200-point jump is going to be something that's difficult. And then outside of that, again, it's just what I said. The mindset is it's possible. So I'm going to do all these steps and take these steps to make sure I can put myself in the best position to do it. So I believe you can. But again, it's a lot of hard work in front of you, but I think you're totally capable. And then touching on the MBE differential. So one thing that you guys have to make sure of is that when you do practice MBEs, especially through like a company, AdaptiveBar, right, UWorld, et cetera, you have to do enough of the practice questions, because a lot of times the way those algorithms work, the questions get harder as you go on. And sometimes those percentages then may drop later on. And so you want to get around, you know, at least 2,000 questions in, and then that gives you a pretty good idea going in. So make sure you're doing enough questions is the advice there. And then also, Tony, I would say you should consider going with a different multiple choice bank this time. I mean, especially if you were scoring already pretty high with wherever you're at, and that wasn't an indicator of doing well necessarily on the MBE. It doesn't hurt now to try a different bank of questions.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, next, Thurman.
Hi, how are you? I'm Thurman Green.
Nice to meet you, Thurman.
Hey, I just want to see really kind of technically, how do I get started with your pre-program that starts tomorrow? Do I need to write a check? Do you need my credit card? Do I mortgage my house? What do I do?
Hopefully, you know, mortgage of the house. But what you can do is just go to the website, and from there you can select the options, right? So you have the self-study option, you have the live option, and then you have the Live Plus that comes with private coaching once a week for 2 hours. So once you select which one you want, right, you could just go through the entire prompt on the website. From there, you could pay through credit card. I think you can also finance it through PayPal. And yeah, you have the promo code to make sure you get your discount. And then from there, what we're going to do tomorrow is everybody that signed up for the early start, we're going to send them the link to the meeting at 7 p.m. where we're going to discuss your early start schedule and how you want to go through it.
Okay, and you'll get the study materials. I'm just going to throw away all my outlines. They didn't really help. So
yes. You'll have everything you need as far as materials, outlines, videos, etc. And like for everybody that's considering coming over to Legally Fit, let me, you know, and I'll address this like now in the early start and also at the official start of the program. A lot of times students are like, I don't want to watch any more videos. I don't want to relearn the law. I just want to get straight into practice. Let me tell you that the way that we teach it in Legally Fit is significantly different. And the way that we teach it is going to be more effective for you to understand it, which is going to translate to better essays and multiple choice. So make sure, and again, it's like, if you're already really, really strong in a class, by all means, maybe you don't have to watch the video for contracts, or you don't have to watch all of them. Maybe you just like pick like, ooh, I didn't know parole evidence. Let me like watch that portion. But make sure you're going into bar prep with the mindset of, right, let me get back into some of these subjects and learn it better, because that's going to help overall with everything. And the way that I teach too is not just simply like, oh, okay, here's the rule. We're actually going through practice problems. So you're going to be simultaneously building your essay writing skills and multiple choice as well. But again, Thurman, the short answer there, yes, feel free to, you know, I want to say you got to throw it away, personal choice, but yeah, like you're going to get your outlines, you're going to get everything you need. And I don't want you necessarily using multiple sources and, you know, it's conflicting and all of those things. So yeah, you'll get everything you need.
all right, thanks so much.
All right, Thurman, I'll see you soon. All righty. So I think we are good to go. It is 8:40. If we have any other questions, again, like, you know, I'm here for you guys. So if there's more, I can even stick around. But if not, I'll start to say, yeah, our goodbyes. Thank you for everybody who came. Best of luck in your journey, right? Even if you don't sign up for the Legally Fit program, we still try to extend ourselves to help as much as possible. During this time, I'm getting a lot of emails, a lot of phone calls. I'm pretty busy, but if you guys want to email me your results, I'll try to respond to as many emails as possible with like what I think your personal approach should be. So I just put in my email. Oh, sent that to the wrong, hold on. Let me put it in there one more time. So I just put in my email. If you want to email me your scores, and I could find time to give a little blurb on what I think your personal approach should be, I will go ahead and do that. But yeah, thank you guys for coming. Thanks for all of you guys for staying to the end and soaking up that information. And I truly hope you guys are successful on this next exam. And I know you can be. So hopefully today helped. And I look forward to seeing you guys all soon.